let's get right in there, Alan. And we're talking full spoilers now, okay? This is Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, full spoiler discussion. Everything's on the table. Couple things I noticed last night that I didn't notice the first time, or things that maybe stood out to me more. And let's start off right at the beginning. 369 people watching, by the way. It's a great number to kick
we're at 375 now. So
all right.
We're at a nice round number. Do you want to talk about T'Challa's death, by the way?
But no. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna. What do you mean we're gonna talk about it? Of course.
No, I mean I figured it out. We had a bunch of questions as to how could T'Challa die, and I figured it out because they briefly mentioned it in like half a second, and it's easy to miss.
Yeah. No. Same here. It was just like it's sort of this weird unknown virus. I mean, why don't you? You saw the movie again last night with your daughter.
Yeah. So this is, I believe, the explanation, but T'Challa's powers as the Black Panther had worn off. And there's no heart-shaped herb anymore because Killmonger destroyed them all in the first movie. So the powers of Black Panther wore off. T'Challa got a virus and he died. The whole opening sequence was Shuri trying to synthesize a new heart-shaped herb to save T'Challa's life. Of course, she couldn't do it in time, and he died. So that's the explanation.
But it all happened so quickly that the first time we watch it, we're like, wait, what is going on?
Yeah, and you missed it because did you know what Shuri was trying to make in the opening sequence?
No.
Exactly. It was the heart-shaped herb. And they went about it in a very roundabout way to explain that was what it was. And it was easy to miss, and we missed it the first time, and I caught it the second time.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it all happened so quickly. You're thinking, wait a sec, what? So the star of the movie, the character Black Panther, is dying, and why? And it's not. It's everything is just happening so frantically. You're just thrust in, and he dies. And it's so. Here's the thing. Okay, sure, he could die, but the fact that he dies off screen, we don't see him.
Yeah.
And it's even mentioned to Shuri, like, to go see him to kind of have a last moment with him, right? And she does. She's too frantically trying to figure things out. So you think she would have worked on that, trying to synthesize the herb sooner. So
yeah, this will be the ongoing problem I have with the movie is they're taking interesting story elements and not dealing with it well, not presenting it on screen very well. The scene of T'Challa dying should have had more weight behind it, and they weren't able to pull it off.
I'm really curious because we did talk about this, and we'll have some videos, clips from our last live stream. We went for like 2.5 hours talking about it. But Alan, how did your daughter react, and how did the audience react to that? I mean, it was pretty quiet in our theater, but what were your, because your daughter, I think, is kind of the demographic for this movie, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, she's, she was definitely heartbroken when Chadwick Boseman died.
But you said she had some interesting takeaways and thoughts. I want to hear what she thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think she had. It's kind of funny. She liked the fact that it was kind of a 3-hour funeral for Chadwick, but at the same time, she was the movie was very depressing, and I basically, with the first Black Panther, we saw it. She essentially dragged me to see it 2 more times, and then when Chadwick passed away, we went and saw it again. This one, I asked her, okay, now that you've seen this, would you see it again? And she said, oh no, she's not going to see it again.
Really?
And again, this is going to be the box office problem that Black Panther 2 has. It has no repeat value. There's no reason to want to go see it again. It's an average book, and you're probably not going to pick it up again.
Right.
Yeah. And then I think she saw a lot of the weaknesses in the story that the rest of us have seen. I think, again, I'll just say it throughout this entire discussion, the storytelling of Ryan Coogler, and the bones were there for a really good story. It's just he couldn't pull it off on screen, and that's going to be the the reason this movie ultimately fails.
Okay. All right. Well, the audience that I was with last night reacted a little bit better, but I think the flaws that the things that don't work about the movie stood out even more to me. For example, Ironheart, Riri Williams, she doesn't need to be in this movie at all, other than the fact that she created a device that can detect vibranium, and then they find more vibranium under the sea. There's so much plot in this that doesn't really tie into character that it gets a little annoying, kind of like a bad video game plot. Like video games are all about tasks and setting up sort of like a task or an adventure, a journey that you have to go on, and you have to get the thing to connect the thing or get the key to unlock the door to do. And this movie had a lot of that, and I feel like that's what made it really boring, is that all the stuff that the characters are being tasked with are just video game side quests. And because it felt, and it came with all the weight of a video game side quest. And that's why I kind of feel like so much of the movie just fell flat. Like, okay, what do they have to do now? Oh, they've got to go get the thing. I feel like when a task is motivated by something within the character, a character motivation, like, when those kinds of tasks are tied to that, like Luke Skywalker saying, I want to become a Jedi like my father, that kicks off. That's a task that is motivated by something within him, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a hero's journey. That's what you're talking about.
Exactly. And this just didn't have that feel. It didn't have that feel at all, that any of the things the characters were being tasked with really meant anything.
Yeah.
Am I missing something?
Again, the lack of good storytelling. This movie is about Shuri becoming the Black Panther, but you really don't really lock it in until the end of the movie that's what it should have been, and you just never got. I mean, the entire thread of this film should have been. You should have got the sense that we're building up Shuri to become, to take over the mantle of her brother. And that's just not there. It's just over. There's just too much narrative to cover that up, and that's the heart of this story. We could argue as to whether Shuri, the character, should have been the Black Panther, but at least this is the connective tissue of the story that should have been played out. And Coogler just didn't do a good job to tell that story.
And it does.
That's your A story. That is your A story.
I've heard other people mention it, but it almost feels like this was made by a different filmmaker, right? Like the person who made the first movie and everything that made the first movie appealing is completely absent. And I would have to say, the strong male characters, there were so many good ones. Winston Duke is the standout. I will say the crowd loved every minute that Winston Duke was on screen. He was great. That whole thing of like coming and eating a carrot.
I know the reaction of him eating a carrot, it elicited a sound from the audience that you just hadn't heard since the beginning of the movie.
Right. He's a little comic relief, but also he's got that like big male energy. And I don't know. He really worked for me.
Yeah.
And my feeling is, excuse me. Yeah. I've heard that like sometimes when a character has nothing to do, what they say, and I heard this on a DVD commentary for the movie Liar Liar with James Carrey, with Jim Carrey. And there's just a scene where people are talking and they say that sometimes what actors need in a scene is you give them like a coffee cup. If they're just holding a coffee cup, it gives the actors something to do. So they're not just standing talking. They have to do something with their hands. So the idea of giving Winston Duke's character M'Baku, giving him like a carrot to sort of eat comically in the scene is kind of funny. I mean, I could imagine even that was something like, we're just standing around. What? Just give me something to do. And, I mean, actors do participate in that. Like, what am I supposed to be doing here? What can I do? They've got to work with like props and things that are on the set and whatnot. And
just the fact that eating a carrot is a standout moment in this movie says a lot about the movie.
The greatest moment in Black Panther Wakanda Forever is M'Baku eating a carrot. When M'Baku ate the carrot, chills.
Yeah.
I want that on a poster.
Yeah, and apparently he's going to be king at the end. So
Well,
I think,
then there you
yeah.
go. I
Yeah,
look.
but yeah, no, I want to address the
Please,
it didn't feel like the first movie.
yeah.
And I'm going to tell you exactly why it doesn't feel like the first movie.
Hmm.
Because of COVID. This is definitely, if you really watch how scenes, how frames are composed, and the set. This is a COVID set. This is probably early on, in the heart of COVID, and so you'll see that that people are grouped off in trios, and then kept, 6 feet apart, socially distant throughout the whole movie. The flood through the town, you can kind of tell there's not a lot of people in that scene, and they're spread out strategically to look bigger on a set that you can't have people within 6 feet of each other. And this whole movie, that's why, I mean, when you watch this movie, you notice just how few people there are on a set, in frame, on screen. You can tell this is absolutely this movie. I think, if anything, was ruined by COVID. It impacted the storytelling, the weight of the story, because you just can't have, a large group of people unless you CGI it like they did at the end.
Well, I think ruined by Chadwick Boseman's death, but not
Yeah,
ruined by
that's
his death in this sense. Ruined because, to me, I think the decision to not recast T'Challa was a bad decision. I think it was. I think ultimately, when they write about however this movie performs, right, people are going to look back and go, maybe it wasn't a good idea to completely, to tie into the film the death of Chadwick Boseman, right? Like Chadwick Boseman died. The character didn't die. I mean, and I don't know. Look, I'm not keeping up with the Black Panther comics. In modern day, does he die in the comics?
I have no idea. I stopped reading. The last time I was there, he was still alive. But I do remember they were. I know, like, Shuri, I believe, got her own comic book. I believe some of the other
Yeah. Here's the question: could they be setting this up because no one, at least as I understand in the world of Black Panther, you basically, there is an afterlife, right? There is an afterlife. So you are on this mortal coil for a certain period of time. You pass on to the afterlife, but you exist in the afterlife. Could they be setting up in Black Panther 3 the return of T'Challa, but either returning from the afterlife, and or a multiverse version of T'Challa that is played by a different actor?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you got the sense that, just the fact, big spoiler jump here, but introducing his son at the end of the movie, I think that's your your lead into the future of Black Panther here.
You mean T'Challa Jr.?
Yeah, Prince T'Challa.
Prince T'Challa.
Yeah,
but he's so young.
I know.
What is he? 6 years old. He's 6
Yeah.
years old. So is he
Yeah.
gonna? So in 15 years, we're gonna see teen Black
T'Challa.
Panther.
Yeah,
Teen T'Challa.
and then Queen Shuri will be his mentor, and or maybe you'll see teen Black Panther. He'll take the heart-shaped herb and become Black Panther.
Yeah, now that they can just make it.
Yeah.
But
I'll say this, in terms of, continuing to bury the story, the most interesting thing that was in this movie, the character aspect, was Shuri, and Shuri kind of being the atheist of the family, and the fact that she didn't believe in the ancestral plane, and there's such great storytelling potential that comes out of that dynamic, and I feel like they buried it, or they didn't really emphasize it enough. They're kind of alluding to it, but I didn't really, it just felt like a very weak character arc for her in this film. And I believe, I have to believe that Coogler is a better storyteller than this. And I don't know why that element of it was suppressed.
Yeah. Now it was pointed out to me by Eric Weber that there's a scene where Riri Williams burns some cops.
She burned cops?
she like attacked some cops. And there's a line at the end of the movie.
Uh-huh.
Like there was this action scene I did not think was very good. It was like all,
Yeah.
the action scene on the bridge, right?
Yeah. I mean, the action scene with very few people on it because of COVID restrictions.
Right. That's yeah. Now that you point it out, that totally makes a lot of sense. But she basically she attacked some cops when she was in the suit, and then at the end they're like, "Oh, don't worry, we took care of that for you." There's a line at the end where she's like, well, I'm going back home, but like, will I be in trouble?" It's like, "Don't worry, we took care of that for you."
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember the phrase "burn some cops." I'm trying to remember exactly what she said, and I don't think that's if it was said, I think it was more metaphorical than literal.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I can't believe she would say that.
Look, I think this film, I mean, what a way to end phase 4 is with the death of a major character. And as we've seen more and more of the characters be replaced by female characters, the male characters being replaced by female characters, we're going to see how this is going to play out. I think that's a huge mistake. Now, certainly bring on more characters, but the idea of sort of sunsetting a lot of the classic characters, and I think that Black Panther is an iconic character. Truly.
Yeah. And you mentioned it. This movie wouldn't exist if Chadwick Boseman hadn't died. It would be a completely different story.
I don't know that it would be. I don't know that. But also, did you really need to kill the character? I feel like there could have been a way to simply have like this takes place during the blip, and then T'Challa returns. They think he's dead, right? They've this is basically him dying for the second time.
Yeah.
He goes away in Infinity War, comes back for a year, and then dies.
See, I'm a big believer in, you can tell us a good story out of anything, any circumstance. And they definitely could have told a good story with, killing off Black Panther. But I think you're right in the sense of, this is his second film and he's already gone. And that, and he was such a good character in the first one. He was, I know it's debatable, but still there were a lot of people who liked the first movie, who liked Chadwick Boseman and would have wanted to see it continue. And it's just kind of a shame that it played out the way it did. And I feel like that they didn't handle the second chapter very well. And they should have. The bones were there for a good story, and they couldn't tell it.
We have a lot of comments and questions, and we'll address those. But I think the bottom line for me on this was they didn't need to kill the character of T'Challa. There could have been a way around it. You could have written around it, I believe, and inevitably recast the character. Maybe him being off screen for the first half of the movie and then returning from a different actor. I think that would put a lot of pressure on that actor. But I think there are a lot of really good actors that could be up for the task.
Yeah. I mean, I think we mentioned Aldous Hodge would have been a good replacement.
There's a whole bunch, but gosh, man, it just the one thing is interesting that your daughter said she doesn't want to see it again. She saw the first Black Panther 3 times in the theater and doesn't want to see this a second time.
Yeah.
There is something about that. It's not, parts of the movie are not a pleasurable experience. We haven't even talked about Namor. Namor. It's so funny. Namor, which Eric Weber pronounces it Nemor. Nemor.
Or Nimoy. He's got the ears for a Nimoy.
He does a little. I think Namor's character probably inspired Spock.
Yeah.
The look of Spock in a way.
Yeah.
But
what did you think? The fact that she won't see it again, I mean, we're going to see it in the box office. We're going to see it underperform, and that's sad.
Everything in Phase 4 has underperformed,
except Spider-Man.
Except for Spider-Man, that's the only one. The only movie not made by Marvel is the one that ends up being the best of the movies. Is, I think, in a sense, giving the audience what they want, right? About 3 Spider-Men. I think that they'll do it again. I think there'll be another Spider-Man movie with some reuniting the Spider-Man, maybe even more Spider-Man, so to speak. You call it Spider-Man.
Or Spider Island.
What?